Ian, we got a Patreon.
Patreon.com/CU podcast. I do writing. You get a full video podcast. We do hangouts. You get a bonus podcast bits and tidbits
Every week. This week,
snackaroos.
This week, I complain about the Spider-Man No Way Home trailer. I didn't comment on the fact that I hate the fact they had to put wedge home into all three names for no frickin'. Now it's going to be like the Home trilogy, but I rail for 15 minutes about that. Ian says about 12 words all segment.
Yeah.
Next time I'll do a counter. And we have this polls, right? In second place, are sealed game collectors being mistreated? 26%. Okay, I'm going to say something to the people voting. That doesn't mean we necessarily will say we agree with that assessment in the way you don't think it should be. It's a discussion of that, just to nudge you a little bit more. And in first place, hardest NES games ranked. This comes from Seth Abramson and his retro Substack. Nice enough to send Ian and me a subscription to this. So we're going to run through the hardest NES games. And just like we went through a couple lists before from Seth, we went through his top consoles list ranked and also the worst NES games we went through.
That's right.
We're doing worse now. We went through the hardest ones.
No,
we're doing hardest now.
We're doing hardest now.
So he combines a bunch of different sources, websites, certain NES, Super Nintendo guidebooks, I think video sources. He combines them all together into, I guess, an algorithm to spit out these rankings, Ian. So you want to start with it?
So yeah, the first one is...
I can't believe you went to number one again. I can't believe you didn't go in a bottom order.
I don't know. They need to be listed differently then. All right, well, the first one, it's not like people are going to care. We'll start with 20. The three that tie for 20.
Spoilers.
Who cares? The three that tie for 20, Friday the 13th, Kid Icarus, and Rygar. I've never really thought of Rygar as being that difficult.
It's hard.
I guess. I don't know why I've never really thought of that one as being like one of the biggest ones. Kid Icarus, definitely very difficult. And Friday the 13th, hard, but I mean more difficult because of the horrible map design.
But it's still hard though.
Yeah.
Kid Icarus is hard on the surface because that first stage is hard. The vertical jumping is
all the stages are hard. There's so much vertical jumping. There's 3 levels of vertical jumping, but 3 levels of horizontal, then 3 more vertical jumping levels.
But as a kid, I couldn't get to the second stage in Kid Icarus as a kid. Whenever I play at a friend's house, I think Kevin had it. Damn you, Kevin. I never could get past that first stage, so it stayed unplayed. It just there was no difficulty balancing like learning curve to Kid Icarus. It was like it's just hard to start.
Sure. You
got short, stubby arrows. You got only a couple of hearts, right? Like a few hearts, and like that's it. And it's tough.
Gauntlet.
Gauntlet to me is,
I think that's more of an endurance test.
Yeah, it's
hard because it's hard to sit there and actively get through all 100 levels. But I don't know if it's impossible.
There are some stages that will. Here's the thing: it's not unlimited continues, I believe, on the NES, right?
Probably not. No.
In the arcade, you can keep pumping quarters in. You can't, and to get more energy, you can't do that on the NES. I think though, did we try to play through it one time and we got to like stage like 60 or 70? Did we try that on a marathon one time? We obviously skipped through, but like we got through a chunk.
Yeah, we definitely did do.
I believe that
something like that.
If you practice at Gauntlet, obviously to get the correct ending, you got to find all the secret shit, and that was like 8 secret things hanging around. You got to get whatever. I think if you practice at Gauntlet, though, I think it won't be. It should not be the top 20. I would not. I think that's a reputation thing, but you can play through the first 10, 15 minutes of Gauntlet and be fine.
Right.
You're not going to get your ass kicked like Friday the 13th.
Yeah, it's not going to immediately show itself as being very difficult.
Sure. What's next?
What do we got next? We've got Top Gun.
Top Gun gets a bad
18.
Rep. It's not. Now, Top Gun is not the hardest thing you're ever going to play. It's not the easiest thing.
No.
It is hard to dodge the missiles if you're not used to the cadence of them coming at you. When they lock in from behind, you really do have to be specific on going left and right. People obviously get on Top Gun
for the landing.
This is what I'm going to say about the landing sequences. They're not simple. You do have to pay attention, but they are not impossible. And when I was 7, 8 years old, I did them 90%, 80, 90% of the time I do them.
Right.
It's not foolproof, but I think people they psych themselves out.
Yeah, absolutely.
They get psyched out. Obviously, AVGN's video might have helped with that. I think what makes that bad is the fact that you lose an entire life.
Sure.
If it was like you get to try it again, you know, like you get
I
a
think
couple
that's
tries.
the thing is you don't get to. The reason I think it screws people is because you don't get to practice it.
Yes. Yeah.
If you miss it, you miss it, and you just move on to the next level.
Yeah. That's probably it. And then if that's the only time you die, you won't make it to the third level, because in the second stage you also have to do the refueling thing, which counts as a life as well. You crash.
Yeah, if you couldn't proceed from the first level to the second level until you aced it, everyone would be landing that plane no problem.
Sure. Ninja Gaiden 3 is freaking tough because there's limited continues. Even if there wasn't, it's still tough. But the fact that they put limited continues on that third game, at least for North America.
Yeah, I was going to say, that's one of those weird games
that's
that
unreasonable.
People always say that games get simplified when they come to the US. No, some games get cranked up in difficulty because they want it to... They don't want you to be able to beat it in a rental period.
I was going to say that might have been more of a rental thing, because the first game obviously came out a few years before. Maybe by that point, like, okay, bigger rental market, early 90s. They wanted to really lean into that, but that's bullshit. That game is tough.
Fester's Quest, on the other hand, is one of those games that's like the opposite of something like...
a few, Ian.
Oh, sorry. Castlevania was the other one.
Castlevania. It's a tough game.
Yep.
I would probably put it in the top 20.
Very
it's
hard.
Unforgiving jumps. If you don't have the right sub-weapons, the bosses can be insane. The Grim Reaper still gives me nightmares. The Grim Reaper is harder to me than I think Dracula.
Yeah.
So like that's a tough game. I gotta be like A+ gamer to get to Dracula. I gotta be on. Double Dragon 3, the Sacred Stones, another one where
I think that's one where they also wrenched up the difficulty when it was brought to the US.
Yeah. Yeah. The lack of continues. I think you get the one life, which is insane.
Each character gets one life.
It was just bad. It's not a bad game if they changed that and it was like, okay, we'll give you like 3-4 lives and you can continue. People would be like, okay.
Right. Blaster Master, same thing. It's a hard game, but made harder by the fact that there's limited continues. I think it's a 3 continue game.
I don't have a lot of experience with Blaster Master. I'll be honest. I really should play through that.
Tied for 12, Fester's Quest and Castlevania 3, Dracula's Curse. Fester's Quest, going back to what I was saying, kind of the opposite of Gauntlet Gauntlet. You know, you're fine early on, but it gets harder later on. Fester's Quest is not, I don't think, that hard of a game, but the initial moments in you start off so weak in Fester's Quest. You need to get some items, you need to get some health bonuses. Once you get going in Fester's Quest, it's really not that bad. But yeah, the game requires some grinding like immediately after you start.
Did you say is Castlevania 3 that's listed as harder than Castlevania? I find that hard to believe.
I think most people would tell you that.
It is harder?
Yes. Yeah,
Okay.
Castlevania 3 is...
Even with the ability to play as different characters? And
Castlevania 3 is absurdly hard, and again, I think one that was increased in difficulty
They did increase that one?
when they brought it over here.
Super Mario 2, The Lost Levels.
It's just a fucking cheaters game.
It's not technically an NES game, but we'll let it pass.
Sure.
It's Famicom, but
It's a cheaters game.
it's a cheaters game? What do you mean?
It's not...
I've beaten it.
It's kind of fun and interesting, and let's see how they could break Mario, but there's a reason it never came over here. That game is just Nintendo laughing in your face. It takes everything you think you know about the first Mario, and...
I beat the Super Nintendo
wind
version.
that blows you away when you think you're going to make the jump, poison mushrooms. It's just, it's a mean game.
Yeah, it's trial and error, which a Mario game should not be.
Yeah, it's a lot of trial and error.
It's Mega Man Mario. There you go. I hate trial and error where you have to die to learn the game, and I hate that.
Adventures of Bayou Billy.
Yes.
Very hard.
Another one I think that people say the Japanese version is easier. Well, like I think that they increased the difficulty of the average thug villain.
Yeah.
And it's like, why? They're already tough. And they don't... The problem with Bayou Billy, there's 2 problems to it. When you hit a guy, he doesn't like go backwards. He'll like stay there and just pause and go invisible for a second. You don't know how much damage you're actually doing to the enemies. First off, it's harder to tell. Like in Double Dragon, you hit a guy down twice, he's probably dead. Maybe 3 times. You're like, it's hard to tell. You just keep pounding the guy. They don't go down. There's no reprieve. from that. And then when you punch, like you might as well not even punch in the game. You might as well not even punch. You might as well just try to do a kick every now and then and just do the jump kicks or get the weapons. It's so unbalanced. If the fighting in Bayou Billy was as polished as, we'll just say, Double Dragon NES, it would be potentially a top 10 NES game.
Sure.
Because like it has the zapper stuff is fine. The racing is interesting, but the core of the game is just broken. But it's a polished game otherwise. The sound is great. The graphics are nice. The story, the cutscenes, it
just doesn't play well.
Number 7, tied. Zelda 2, The Adventure of Link. What are you thinking? You love The Adventure of Link.
Very difficult game. Lots of grinding needed to get through that last palace. Yeah, it's hard. It's just a very difficult game. The 2D fighting can be very difficult when you're going up against the dreadnoughts and stuff like that. Yeah, it's a tough one, but I think a lot of people can get through it with grinding. You really got to grind out those extra lives.
I don't think it would make my top 10 or maybe even top 20. I think that's not as tough as Bayou Billy. I don't think it's as tough as Castlevania. I think it's like you obviously get used to the combat. The more you get into it, you get stronger. It's not an easy game, no, but I would not put that.
I would say all three of these number 7s, Contra, Mike Tyson's Punch-Out, and Zelda 2 are awfully high up for games that are definitely difficult, but I think they're more known because of their popularity. I don't know that I would list any of them as most difficult.
Punch-Out is difficult if you are not a twitchy gamer. It's not for you because once you get to like Mr. Sandman or even Soda Popinski, it notches to like a higher level of difficulty. It lasts 3-4 boxers. Super Macho Man, to this day, I don't think I can beat him without getting knocked out at least once. Mike Tyson is legitimately one of the hardest game bosses. And unless you like have, less than 0.2 a second you have to react to those uppercuts. Like it is, you have to be a twitchy gamer. Contra, I'm really good at it, so that's why I'm always surprised when I see that.
I'm not good. I've said this before, I think, in a different, remotely similar topic, but I'm not good at video games, and I can beat Contra without using the continues or without using the code.
Without the codes, you have to continue. Okay.
Yeah, I've done it in 4 lives.
I think that's when that comes up, I just wonder why. Maybe because people went to the 30 life code and just didn't try to get good at it.
I think that's exactly it.
Yeah.
When you have the 30 life code, you don't try. You just run.
You just run through it.
But if you play lives. When you start playing it without the code, you take your time a little bit and you realize that it's pattern recognition.
It's not an easy game. I'm not saying that, but I wouldn't put it in my top 20.
No.
Mega Man.
Yeah, especially the first one, very difficult. Gutsman stage, awful.
Silver Surfer. This is a reputation thing. It is hard. I wouldn't put it number 5.
I would, but it's one of those games where, like, again, if you pay enough attention to it, like Contra, you can do it. The big problem with Silver Surfer is the hitboxes are way too big for the Silver Surfer.
If they modified the hitbox,
it could have been it's not a great game. It's a beatable game. It could have been a good game if the hitboxes were more manageable.
I think I gave it an above average rating. I think it's an above average game. If it was more fair in the difficulty and had better power ups, it would be a legitimately probably very good game.
TMNT.
This one I go back and forth on. This is why.
There's a lot of unavoidable shit in the later half of that game.
Funny you say that. This is a coincidence. I found randomly, I'm going to give the person credit, I found a no-hit run of this game.
Holy shit.
On legitimate hardware.
That's insane.
No hit Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle NES. I got to find it because I just saw it. No damage.
That's absolutely insane.
God, I'll link it when I find it if I can't find it. I literally saw this a few days ago. Here's the key to this game that as a kid I didn't recognize. The key to this game, you have to stock up on the scrolls. When you stock up on the scrolls, it's a much easier game. Not saying it's easy. It's far easier. When I was a kid, little Pat would get to the Technodrome and get his ass kicked.
Right.
If you got the scrolls, there's a lot less of, like you said, parts where you're going to take damage because the scrolls are like one hit deaths to most of the enemies.
Gotcha.
You can knock them out. So you get the scrolls, I think in like the second or third stage, you can keep going back in the room, going up and getting them.
Yeah.
So get the scrolls for all 4 turtles. That gives you like 140 scrolls. You can get through the Technodrome. Like you can get through a part of that. I remember, never forget, I got to Shredder as a kid and lost, and my heart shattered.
Oh yeah.
Because just to get to Shredder was like, holy shit. I don't know if even Shredder was that hard, but I must have been, my little thick but quick Pat's heart was probably beating so much. And that was it. And you only get 4 lives. Yeah, you can rescue your turtle once or twice. You get 4 lives. No continues.
It's not easy.
In Turtles there. Ninja Gaiden. Yes.
Truly difficult.
Difficult because of the respawning enemies. You get rid of the respawning enemies, I think it's a much easier game. And there, of course, there's that glitch, and the glitch, whatever. So they didn't patch it out or patch where if you die at the final boss, you go all the way back to whatever is 4-1 or whatever. You get to go, and that's what kills your soul. 6-1,
I think.
That's what kills your soul. It's like you're not even starting me at like 6-3, 6-4. That's what's so hard, because the fucking flying ninjas throwing the stars is the worst part, like the worst part of the game. And for certain sections of that game, unless you have the jump and slash attack, unless you have that, you better be, a top tier expert at this game in order to get through it and have a chance, especially with the hits off the balconies and ledges. And number 2, Ghosts and Goblins. Yeah, It's a tough game.
Yep.
Oh yeah.
I've beaten it once, but I've never done 2 laps. Never done the 2 laps to get the official ending.
I am proud of myself when we play on the NES Marathon. When I get to the 3rd stage, I'm like, I'm playing top tier. I can get to the 3rd stage, but that's it. Like, it's a tough game. And number 1, Ian,
Battletoads.
No drum roll.
No Battletoads.
Battletoads.
No drum roll. Battletoads.
Do you agree with that assessment?
It's a piece of shit game. Yeah.
I wonder if it's.
Because the turbo tunnel is very difficult, but that's not the only level in the game that makes that game so hard. The elevator level,
the snake,
the snake is doable, but the elevator level and the final level, the tower is.
So I never played that.
Is horseshit. Yeah, that's the thing. Like, if you haven't played all of Battletoads, skipped the levels and played it, a lot of people think, well, if you can just get past the turbo tunnel, you're fine. But no, it's constantly throwing bullshit at you.
The problem with Battletoads, again, you play these like experimental gameplay types. You don't get used to. It doesn't give you a chance to get good at any of them before you have to use those skills. They throw you into the turbo tunnel. And like, okay, you can handle this. And what? That could be the end stage of some games. It literally could be. That's how tough it is. I couldn't beat that when I was a kid. Now somehow my reflexes got better at some of these games. I can beat it now regularly. The same thing with Mike Tyson. As a kid, though, when you're 9, 10, I couldn't do it. I couldn't. Or 11. I couldn't do it when I was 10. Great. Good for you. Most kids couldn't. And you cannot design a game that kills you within 15 minutes dead or you can't get past it. And there's the other, the rat stage. There's all these stages that just fuck with you.
That's why I hate it too. You play the first stage and you're like, there could be a competent beat 'em up here with some interesting animation and shit like that. And then they revisit that like twice. It's a mess.
You know what? I like your Rare overall, but do you have to just like show off how cool you are? You got to show off how cool you are. Come on, you love Snake Round and Roll. You gotta love Snake Round and Roll.
I like how it looks.
We probably play that 2 players in the marathon.
That's all right.
So there you go. I agree with like most of these in the top 20, but there's definitely a few like Contra I wouldn't place in here. I would not place Top Gun in here for sure.
I don't
and Gauntlet for sure should not.
I could see Contra being in the top 25, but it's not a top 10, and it's not as bad. If I can do it, you can do it.
The problem with these lists though is that they're going off of the more popular games. Like for example, the stuff that didn't make the top 20.
It's based on articles, so it's always going to have a more popular bid.
Like Bionic Commando, I put above Contra for sure. For sure, Bionic Commando is a tougher
Commando
game.
Is very difficult.
That's a much tougher game. Dare I say underrated? 4.5 stars according to a certain NES Guidebook. That's a much tougher game. Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde is a much tougher game than Silver Surfer, for example.
Sure.
Simpsons, Bart vs. Space Mutants is a much tougher game than Rygar. Paperboy? No. Paperboy's tough.
Very difficult.
Okay, I just like Paperboy then. All right, is that we're good on that? Thank you.
Good.
Thank you, Seth. Check out Seth's work. Seth Abramson.